Hello, everyone. Once again, this is Dare to Speak. I wanted to pretty much talk about something that's a little bit controversial, I guess. It depends on your point of view. But I just want to know what all of you think. When it comes to discrimination, racial bigotry, and all that, and I have come across that every now and then, not very often, but every now and then. It's it's kind of rare for that to happen to me, or in which someone said something racial to me and that's very hurtful or whatever. But it was nothing major. But the thing about it is, I have noticed that even some Hispanics, and I noticed this from high school, and I noticed this in the workplace right after high school, like the first 5 or 6 years after high school. I noticed that there was some Hispanics, whether they were Mexican or Puerto Rican, that had a hate or animosity towards black people. And I noticed that a lot. And it actually got to the point where some of them like to start trouble or get in their faces when they get into an argument, and then they say the N-word to them. There was these guys one time on the bus. They got into an argument. These two Mexican guys, Hispanics. I don't know exactly what they were, whether they're Mexican or Puerto Rican. They could have been Puerto Rican, I think. Anyways, they were. I got on the bus and I sat down, and then I went to this one stop, and then these two Hispanics came in and they were arguing with these two black guys that were outside. And then, they were saying, fuck you. And then they're saying the N-word over and over again. It's just, you fucking, and then, and just kept on saying that. And I thought maybe they were going to get thrown off the bus. But the bus driver didn't. He just told them to keep their voices down, not to yell like that or say racial slurs. So they paid the fare and they got on the bus. And the two black guys that they were arguing with were just cussing them out as the bus was leaving. The animosity is very strong. But I noticed that even with any race, doesn't matter what they are, they don't seem to have that much of an animosity towards black people that are, excuse me for saying this word, whitewashed. They the ones that are like, they went to private schools, they grew up in the suburbs, and they have white friends, and they can't help but to act that way. That's just how they are. And there's a lot of animosity from black people that are ghetto. They're not as educated as them, and they would poke fun or make fun of them. And there was some that say they got really annoyed with these two black girls that were very educated, and they talked a little bit like Valley Girl type of kind of thing. And this black guy was just getting so annoyed when he was putting away the groceries onto his cart. He said he wanted to go off on them. Go off on them because of the way they're acting. Like they should be ashamed for acting, he says, whitewashed. And he says, I feel like choking these bitches. I feel like smacking them across the face. You're black, okay? You're not white, and this and that, and to the point he just told them to shut up. And these girls were they got offended, and there was a little bit of an argument, and then he just walked away, calling them whitewashed. But these two girls, they grew up in the suburbs. I mean, it's not their fault. Of course, there are some that choose to act that way because they're ashamed of being ghetto. There's not that they're ashamed of being black. They're ashamed of being ghetto, and that is totally understandable. I don't really blame them, to tell you the truth. Just as long as they don't take it too far. Just as long as they don't put down their own kind in general, that kind of thing. But if they're just putting down or actually criticizing the behavior and the stupid antics that they do, then I could actually support them on that. Now, I was gonna. This is my question to all of you that maybe you could probably answer for me. Let's just say that I walked into a store or a restaurant. Let's say I was in a restaurant, and these group of guys, about 4 or 5 of them, come in, and I could just tell that they're very obnoxious and they're loud, and I could just tell that they're very ghetto, and their behavior was a little bit rude. And by the look of them, I could just tell, I could feel a vibe that makes me feel uncomfortable, like they're troublemakers. Not because of the fact that they're black, but because of their behavior and their character. And they continued to be loud, and of course the waiter had to tell them to keep their voices down, and they're like, okay, I'm sorry, and then they just continue, and they start laughing, but nobody does anything because they just say they're a little bit intimidated by them. And then after a while they left when they were done, and then right away I feel a feeling of relief. And let's just say about maybe 10 minutes later, after they left, another group of black guys come in, about 4 of them, let's just say, and they were dressed very preppy. And the first thing that I noticed was how the way they were talking. I just see they were talking very educated, or the term that's used, whitewashed or whatever. And they were talking about computer components. And one of them was talking about their last game that they had of playing Dungeons and Dragons. And they were talking about what they liked from this one episode of Star Wars or Star Trek or whatever, and this and that. And they just talked about science, and they talked about computers and this and that. And let's just say that they pretty much kind of reminded me of like Carlton Banks, from the Prince of Bel-Air, kind of thing like that. And right away I get a very good vibe from them. I feel comfortable. I don't feel threatened. And I actually see them automatically, without even hesitation. They're considered to me as being very good people. Someone you can actually make friends with, and I actually bothered to talk to them. And I talked about some of the subjects they were saying, and they were just like straight up nerds kind of thing, but they were very polite. They're very courteous and thoughtful and stuff like that, and they went back to their conversation talking about computer programming or whatever like that. And after a while they left, and instead of feeling relief, I felt like if only they would have stayed longer, if only I got a chance to talk to them. Now that never happened. That's just an example that I'm giving. That's all. Now, is that considered a form of racial bigotry? Because I don't think it is. And if it is a form of bigotry of any kind, what would you consider it? would you consider it right or wrong in that scenario that I just made up, even though it never happened? But that particular scenario, would you consider that bad, that I judged the first group harshly, but the second group I didn't judge harshly at all? What form of bigotry is that considered? Is that social class bigotry? Is that, I don't know. What kind of form of bigotry would you consider that? So that's just a made up scenario that I just came up with just to see what answer you can give me. That's all I want to know. So if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Questions or comments, you know what to do. And this is Dare to Speak. And to all of you, take care.